This week, we head to the land of Elvis impersonators and larger-than-life casino hotels. It's Vegas, baby. Strap up. We're heading to the desert for the South Point 400. As always, we'll take you down the back road with our favorite bets. DFS plays for the slate. Hang tight. We'll be right back.
It's a non-points race, but it is a short race. Checkered flag. That's all this race is.
All right, we are down the back road and we are getting locked and loaded for Las Vegas as we head out west for the South Point 400, which is maybe one of the most pivotal races of the NASCAR season as far as championship odds go, and also one of the best for betting because, Rod, this is where we strap up our big boy pants and we go to work here.
Yeah, mile and a half. We're back to the normal confines. We've done twists and turns. We've done short tracks. We've done super speedways. Now we get to finally just stretch our legs and get back on a mile and a half and take a deep breath. Or do we? Really, I guess is the question.
Yes, we will see how it plays out here tonight. We're going to go through our DFS picks. We're going to go through our betting cards. We're also going to look back in the rear view, talk a little bit about what we can take away from what was a fun race, I thought, at the Roval here last weekend. We'll talk some trends, some comp tracks as well along the way. And, Rod, I don't know about you. I don't know if you're a Vegas man yourself, but Vegas, I've been there one time, food poisoning on the second day of the NFL draft. Done for the week, man. Didn't have a great experience. Have your times in Vegas been better than mine?
So then you ate the wrong thing at the Vegas vacation buffet, right? Where it was like, don't skimp on the yellow stuff. No, listen, my memories of Vegas are amazing. My grandparents lived there when I was a kid. Okay. So I would go there twice a year from 8 to 18. And I mean, I've had some great times in Vegas as a kid and as an adult. I haven't been there. The last time I was there, I think, was 2006, give or take. Okay. So it's been a while, but I love Vegas. I love everything about it.
Awesome. Well, we'll talk all about it here tonight. But before we jump to Vegas, let's look in the rear view. And real quick, just want to shout out the IBT family. Thank you guys so much for tuning in tonight. We greatly appreciate all the support. The growth has been sensational this season, and we're happy to round it out here, hopefully with a couple big cards for you. So let's get in the rear view and look back at the Roval. Stage breaks were back, and I thought the excitement on the track was as we went to another road course this season. 7 cautions, 7 lead changes, and old AJ Allmendinger, he gets it done in that beautiful, beautiful Celsius Chevrolet Camaro over there for Matt, colleague, and the boys, leading 46 laps here. It looked like Tyler Reddick might run away with it early, but Allmendinger and some more strategy helped him along the way. Your thoughts, Rod, on what was a fun night out in Charlotte?
You got to love AJ Allmendinger and the passion. And I mean, there was a running joke, and it wasn't really a joke because he was starting to become one of my favorite drivers, especially in the Xfinity series. So I was joking with Cody, my co-host on the NASCAR Game podcast. I said, is this my favorite driver again? Is he supposed to be in there? I think all signs are pointing that this could be his last season now as a Cup driver. It's starting to feel that way. So, I mean, you got to love it for him. It's a good story on his way out. Hopefully he does secure that ride in the Xfinity series, but I mean, good for him, right? I mean, he's supposed to be a road course racer. So for him to be able to pull it out, we've seen him grit it through no power steering on one race, a cool suit that was malfunctioning. Like, this dude's gritted his way through all of it to finally have one go his way. I'll take that.
And like you said, man, the emotion, like, he was so overcome with it. As soon as he won the race, he couldn't believe it. And, you know, he goes out there and he says, you know, you never know when it's going to be your last one. And so it was a powerful moment there. very happy for AJ Allmendinger, very happy for us over here at the Backroad as well. Rod, our first outright in what has been months. We've been on the wrong side of Lady Luck for quite some time. She delivered here big for us, the 10-1 on AJ, the top 5 on AJ. And I thought there was some values to be had in the top 10 market last week. We got down on Alex Bowman heavy for a couple units and in the matchups as well. Your thoughts on how the board played out as far as a betting standpoint here at the Roval?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say that, this track we were kind of approaching as a super speedway type of a thing because we were expecting a lot of chaos, right? We were expecting things to go crazy. And for the most part, they kind of didn't. I mean, this was a race where we knew the stages were going to come into play. We knew flipping stages was going to be a thing. So I think that was where a lot of the chaos we were building into it. My card, I went heavy on Blaney to be a top 10 car. That didn't pan out. The only one that I really hit was AJ. I took a couple of bigger swings this week. I had Harvick as a top 3 car just because it had to happen sometime. Obviously it didn't this time. So I had Larson really coming out to win this race, but unfortunately that kind of found itself not necessarily in the realm of possibility, but a good finish for him despite finishing in the back. But all in all, this card didn't shake out exactly the way I wanted it to, but the race was still good. So I kind of felt like it was, a mixed bag.
Yeah, and we'll be back at the Roval here again next year as well. And we just released a full schedule breakdown over on the In Between Media website. Elliot penned that one, so you guys can check that out because it's going to be a fun one, man, in 2024. We have a couple races left starting here this week in Las Vegas. So let's look forward to that race with the Horizon Forecast.
Hey, Michael, it was only 20% chance of rain. I think we got all 20.
All right, we're going to Las Vegas. It's a 1.5 mile intermediate track with some low tire wear. And look, track position is key here. You need it. You want it. You got to have it. Looking at some comps here, Rod, Vegas from earlier this season, we can obviously pull from that. And then to me, it's Kansas 1 and 2. Those are the tracks I'm really looking at. I will be considering Charlotte a little bit and Texas in my data, but I'm looking heavy at Kansas and heavy at Vegas 1.
Yeah, and really, I'm looking at those because, well, the Kansas one especially because it really just happened too. I'm kind of taking Texas into account because it is a mile and a half. Obviously, it's a much different.
Certainly,
racing. Yeah, but it's a mile and a half, right? I mean, these guys tend to perform well on mile and a halves no matter where they are. So I'm looking at those guys that have performed well on all of those, like you said, especially this season, because there's some drivers out there that are not historically good on this track in particular, but have been good on mile and a halves this season that we're taking a look at.
And some trends to note here heading into this one. The past 2 seasons, the winner of the 7th playoff race, not necessarily always at Vegas, but the 7th playoff race, the beginning of the round of 8, this is always won by the eventual winner of the series. Logano, Larson, the last 2 years. No non-playoff driver has ever won at Las Vegas in the playoffs in 6 tries. And it looks like the winner is coming from the top 5 about 38% of the time, but only from the top 10 about 58% of the time, Rod, which I actually, that's kind of a down number from what we see a lot of these mile and a halves.
Yeah, and really, again, this comes down to who needs it the most, right? I mean, when you talk about playoffs and you talk about the postseason for NASCAR, the teams know that this is it, that now the back is really against the wall. So that's why you're seeing playoff drivers win these races. That's why you're seeing them take the chances that they need to take to put themselves in victory lane, because the rest of these guys, granted, yeah, they want to win a race, but the stakes aren't nearly as high as it is for the playoff drivers. So they need to push the limits a little bit. They need to put tape under their decals and stuff like that to get a little bit of an edge. So, that's just the kind of way and the race that it's become, especially now deep into the postseason as we are.
And Rod, we're looking at this when we're looking at outrights. I'm not having anyone on my card that is not one of these 8 playoff drivers. I think, like, I don't know if you do. I don't know if anyone else does. I don't want to call it a fool's errand, but it feels like that a little bit. However, there might be some room in the placement props to make a little bit of coin here. 5 non-playoff drivers finished top 10 in this race last season. 5 of the non-playoff drivers also finished there in the spring earlier this season. So there could be some wiggle room there. How do you go about weighing the importance of the playoff drivers versus the non-playoff drivers?
You have to take them into account when you're talking about outrights, right? I mean, you just laid out the case for the fact that they win, and that all they do on this track is they win. And you're right about the placement. There's cars that finish inside the top 5 that aren't. You see it every playoff race now, where the pylon is always, now they got that little underline. I like it better when they're flat out yellow.
Yeah.
That little underline thing does nothing for me. Like, put the damn thing in yellow so I can, well, not yellow. I hate the color yellow. Put it in some other color. But yeah, so for me, I mean, and listen, can I just say, props to the books. Caesars knocked it out of the park with their offerings this week, my friend.
I agree.
Gave us F1 status bets on everything. You can bet on just about every part of this race now, and it's just amazing to see. So kudos to you guys for stepping it up.
We have been waiting. We've been looking for one book to kind of step up. And Caesars has been the leader for most of the years for different unique offerings. But from a prop bet perspective, there's a lot to dive into. So I'm really excited to break that down later in the show. Practice qualifying here on Saturday, 12:35 p.m. Eastern time, 1:20 p.m. For qualifying. And then we're going green, baby, on Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Stage breaks at lap 80, lap 165, and you betcha lap 267 won this son of a gun. Rod, what do you say, man? Should we go ahead and jump into the tire tiers?
I'm ready if you are.
All right, let's do it. All right, we are in the tire tiers. We are looking at salaries from DraftKings, also from Fan Tracks as well. Rod, let's start it out here, man. I feel like we're going to be heavy at the top of this thing, but we got to get through at least the top 8 here, probably in A's and B's.
You know, the frustrating thing about it, too, is that when you're looking at the drivers that are good at this track and the drivers that have led a lot of laps on this track, which is what you need for a good DFS build, right?
Yeah.
It's Kevin Harvick, and that's, you know, then it's Joey Logano after that, but it's Kevin Harvick. And I don't want to start with Kevin Harvick because I'm kind of done with Kevin Harvick. So it's tough. But then there's Joey Logano, who has led 536 total laps around this track, and that's difficult too. So look, give me Kyle Larson. I know that it is an absolute, you know, just a bogus start for it. I know he's one of the most expensive guys out there right now for this track, but look, he's got 2 second-place finishes in the last 3 races that he's been here. He's won within the last 5, right? He did have a 10th place finish, but more importantly, the dude has led a ton of laps. He's led all 314 laps total around this track. All but 26 of those have come within the last 5 races. So Kyle Larson at the front of this track for a lot, and you need lap leaders, especially on this track, especially if he goes out and runs 103 laps in front. No one else is going to top that. So you got to have him in your lineups.
Yeah, I agree. Every lineup I've set so far has some Kyle Larson in it. I think if you get away from him, it's going to be tough to get those points back somewhere else. Let's stick with a chalk. Let's go Denny Hamlin here. This is a guy who won Kansas earlier this season, should have won Kansas a couple weeks ago as well. Kind of got screwed out of that one. But you look at these mile-and-a-half intermediate tracks so far this season, no one's better than Denny Hamlin, number 1 in the total speed rankings across those comps. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you can't argue with Denny Hamlin. We talked about it too on our show that we figure Hendrick is going to be good and Gibbs is going to be good. Those 2 cars are going to be the class of the field this week, so you're going to kind of have to take them. And, you know, honestly, I'm making a case for Martin Truex to be one of the drivers that you're going to put up there at 10,000. The dude is still steady rocking as far as the points. He's getting you points, right? Mm-hmm. They haven't all been great points, but he's getting you points. And he knows his back is against the wall. You talk about playoff drivers and needing good finishes here. He needs a good finish. There's no other out for Martin Truex Jr. He's got 2 wins, 7 top 5s, 14 top 10s on this track. He's led 304 total laps on this. You look at his last 6 finishes, all top 10 finishes. And then you go back 2 races before that in 2019, he won this race. So, and then in the 19 car, he still had another top 10 finish to add on top of that. Dude is a rock at this track. He's got to figure it out. He was even 7th in the spring. Granted, we all knew that this was a better Martin Truex Jr. earlier in the year. I don't know what happened and what fell off with him. But I definitely think that better days need to be ahead for Martin Truex Jr. He has to figure something out quickly. Again, look back at Kansas. He started 3rd. Unfortunately, crashed out of that race, but he had the speed third in that, right? So give me Martin Truex Jr. I know it's tough to spend $10,000 for a guy struggling as much as he is, but you got to do it.
And then even said on his podcast this week that he's thinking Martin's going to turn it around very soon, possibly starting here out in Las Vegas. And I feel like we picked 3 of the big favorites here to win the championship. And if there's one guy we've left out, it's William Byron. All of the advanced metrics for this track earlier this season, it's William Byron at the front of the pack. Total speed ranking, green flag speed, late in a run speed, and finish. I know Kyle Larson was winning that race earlier this season before that late round caution. However, William Byron got it done. And just look at his finishes lately, Rod. 1st, 3rd, 2nd. He's getting you 50 to 65 DraftKings points every single week. It's really hard to get away from William Byron. And I don't know if you can do it successfully, but maybe stacking even a Larson and a Byron and then throwing some darts after that is not a bad strategy with how many points these guys are set to get you.
Yeah, and again, we talked about it too. This is what the drivers are right now. They're Hendrick, they're Gibbs. That's exactly the guys that we're looking at right now to be fast on this track, which is why it makes sense that not only are they among the favorites to win this race, but they're some of the more expensive DFS plays that are out there. I don't know that I have another A driver. I have an A- driver possibly. So
yeah, go ahead.
You want to put Bowman up there, the other Hendrick?
Okay, we are on a wavelength already. I felt good vibes coming into the show, but I think Bowman, make the case, because I'm going to make the case in the betting segment. What do you got here from a DFS perspective?
Okay, well, I won't go too deep into it then. We'll save that for the betting part. But look, his last 2 finishes, he finished 3rd, right? He finished 3rd in the spring. This has not been a great season for Alex Bowman. This has been a season that 48 car, and I said it on the NASCAR Game of Points, 48 car is not used to not having championship runs, right? That 48 car was piloted by Jimmy Johnson, who drove it to every single championship he could. Now it's not so much, but Alex Bowman is still a good driver. He's still a good enough guy to cross an 8th in the Roval, 6th at Daytona. He did have a pretty solid day at Kansas, finished 10th after starting 23rd. So, I mean, if we're talking Hendrick, and I know that we haven't thrown the last one up there yet, but as far as just non-playoff drivers, I think he's the strongest one right now on this track for Hendrick.
The one thing I love about this too, Noah Gragson finished 11th in this car last season at this track. It was the same argument I made last week at the Roval Forum. Noah Gragson finished, I think, 11th at the Roval last season as well, or at least was running right there before some late cautions got to him. So, yeah, I love that pick. Let's crack open the bees here with Chase Elliott. The guy's been electric since he's been back, averaging 39 DraftKings points. It hasn't always been great, but you're getting your money's worth still, averaging right over 40 DraftKings points these last few weeks here, 41, 54, 50, 38, 53. He's been super consistent in the box scores. And if we're all in on Hendricks, we have to be in on Chase as well.
Yeah. My only issue with that is I told Cody the same thing. I was like, I know Chase is out for nothing more than just to win races now, but I mean, I don't know how much that takes your foot off the gas. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it's almost a matter of, well, I really am not racing for a championship. My teammates are. So what am I doing? Like, am I going to try to win this race? Or again, it's not that Chase Elliott is in that mindset, but if it's me and I know that I'm not racing for a championship and that wins kind of are all I'm after, if I don't feel like I'm going to win this race, maybe I don't necessarily push as hard. I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm not a race car driver, Seth.
No, it's a totally valid argument, and he's still not leading lap. He's still not getting good track position. But I'm gonna bet on the guy who has one of the best average starting positions here, 9.6 throughout his career. That's like right up there in that elite category with Larson, with Logano. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Chase Elliott there. Who else belongs in the B's?
It's been a long time since I've said this, but toss the one car up there.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, when we're talking DFS wise, it's not necessarily I mean, that's the thing about DFS, right? When we're talking DFS, we just want a good play. We just want somebody that is going to give us good fantasy points. Sometimes that correlates into a top 5 or a top 10, but sometimes it could just mean that they give you some decent point differential. And honestly, for Ross Chastain here, he's only $8,300, and it actually offers you a pretty good pivot off of some of these other guys. Look at his last 3 finishes on this track in particular: 3rd place, 2nd place, 12th place. But in that span, he led 83 laps at the fall race of, the spring race of 2022, 68 laps in the fall race of 2022. He didn't lead any laps in the spring, but this is I don't know what it is about Chastain in the beginning of the year that really kind of set you off. But for fantasy purposes, 83 laps led, 68 laps led, fantastic, right? Not to mention he got you some place differential in that too. 18th place to 3rd place. He started 18th, finished 3rd, started 11th, and finished 2nd in the next race. Didn't really gain you too many points in that other race. He started 8th, finished 12th. But again, Ross Chastain is one of those guys where he's going to need. I mean, he's just out of it now, right? Along like Chase Elliott, now he's kind of racing for his own pride. And Trackhouse needs to save a little face as well. Finished 13th in Kansas after starting 6th, 2nd at Texas after leading a lap in there as well. So there's still some life in Chastain, and I feel like he should get some love this week.
Okay, a little rare Ross Chastain love from my man Rod over there. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bring us in some Fords. I'm going to go with Ryan Blaney in this number 12 car. And part of this is narrative. Part of this is going to be narrative based. Right now, Ford's looking around the garages. But we got Buescher and we got Ryan Blaney. Like, that's pretty much their last hope in this thing right now. And what did Logano come out and do this race last year? He said, hey, I'm going to secure my spot in the finals, and then I'm going to get ready for Phoenix, spend weeks and weeks in the sim, and that's what he exactly did, and he won the title. I think Blaney's eyeing this up as a potential win for him and get in. It wasn't great for Blaney earlier this season when we went here, 13th in the total speed rankings, but he did have 4th or the 6th best late run speed. So he's getting it done later in the races here. I think Ryan Blaney's someone who's averaging over 50% good for a top 10 rate. I at least have to consider him here. I think he has a high floor, maybe not the highest ceiling, but I think he at least has a very high floor. He's not going to burn you this week.
I think he's a good play for just a cash game because you're going to get good points out of him. I think he's a good solid rock for a cash game. That way you can build off a little bit more, especially given the fact that you look at what his price is, and he's $9,600. He's a step away from that $11,000 range for Kyle Larson, and that gives you a lot of flexibility in some of these other builds that you can make too. And not just that, but like you can put Larson and Blaney in there and get creative down around the bottom. So I like that as well. All right, we'll go keep the Ford love going. Let's go Brad Keselowski in that 6 car.
Wow, okay.
It's not going to be a chalky play. In fact, there'll probably be a lot of people that tell you not to play Brad Keselowski, and that's okay. I mean, I understand their argument. Obviously, he finished 17th in the spring here, but he started 7th, right? There's something to be said about where his speed was. And we know that RFK has been making lots of progress this year. They have just leaps and bounds over where they were last year. Buescher and him usually always run around the same finishing positions. And look, Brad Keselowski between Daytona and Fort Worth, between that Texas race, had a string of top 10 finishes.
Yes,
in
yes,
that,
he did.
right? 2nd, 6th, 9th, 8th, 7th. Unfortunately, last week he finished 18th at the Roval, but 7th at Texas, 9th at Kansas. Good DFS days for you as well. And Brad Keselowski is just a guy that can get it done on this track in particular. In his 20 starts, he's got 8 top 5s, 12 top 10s, and 3 wins. Granted, most of those came in the 2 car, but from 2013 all the way to 2020, he did not finish outside of the top 10. In fact, he won 3 of those races. So tell me a guy like that forgets how to get around this track, especially in a season where he's improved. I'll take Brad Keselowski.
Okay, I love that pick, and I'm going to back him up with his teammate. Last week, you weren't on the show, Rod, but it was the first time we had these guys in like totally different parts of the tiers. We had Busher all the way up in the Bs, and we had Brad all the way down the Ds. I think they get back closer together here this week. Look, man, Chris Busher, not great at a lot of these comp tracks this season. However, Texas had a shit ton of speed at Texas, third in the total speed rankings that day. I think we see close to a Chris Busher like that. And man, I think he's the guy to do it here. I don't know how it when it comes down, if he'll have the late run speed. He could lose you some points late in the race. But I think he's going to be a guy up there hunting stage points because he knows he's probably going to have to win his way in to the next round via stage wins. Your thoughts on Chris Busher here, Rod?
Yeah, and the frustrating thing for me is that he has been historically bad at this track. And I mean historically bad. It's just all of his finishes have just been atrocious. And that's the only thing that makes me feel bad. And I know that, you look at the stats between last season and this season, they're night and day for Chris Busher. Obviously, the improvement of RFK shows more through Chris Busher than it does through Brad Keselowski, because we know Brad's good.
Yeah.
Right? Busher's the one that needed to prove himself. So, I mean, that's the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous about Busher. But again, all season long, we've seen it. If the 6 and the 17 are together, they're going to finish together. So if I think Brad Keselowski's going to have a good finish, I don't know that Busher's going to get a top 10, but I know that I'm thinking Brad Keselowski can at least get there. Busher maybe 12th, maybe 13th, not too far away from a top 10, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think you can get some stage points to maybe make up a little bit of a difference in that final score there. Rod, can you talk me out of putting Bubba Wallace in this B tier? This is a guy who he's become great at these mile and a halves. We can't deny it, man. 4th earlier this season at this track, 5th in the total speed rankings. We know what he can do at Kansas. He's won there, for crying out loud. Does Bubba Wallace belong here? I thought he showed a lot of maturity the last couple of weeks with how he's handled himself. I've loved to see that on the mic from Bubba.
Yeah, and I can't talk you out of putting him up there. I really can't, because and especially Cody's pretty high on Bubba Wallace this week as well. I mean, you already said it too, exactly what it is. He's become very solid on these mile and a halves. He's figured something out, and I know he's out of the playoffs, and nobody's harder on Bubba than Bubba. But you gotta be encouraged when the greatest of all time, the greatest basketball player, maybe even the greatest athlete in the world, is still in your corner. Right? Is still on your team, is still cheering you on.
Let's go, baby.
If Michael Jordan came up and patted me on the back and said, Rod, you're doing a good job on your show, that would carry me a long way through the rest of my career, right?
I put him on tombstone, honestly. Hell yeah.
Jordan said, I'm good. And that's what he's got. So he's got a little fire in his step. Again, like I said, he missed the next round of the playoffs. But yeah, Bubba's going to be a force here in the next couple of seasons. I think once he gets his head straight, we're in for a much better showing from him.
Yeah, absolutely agreed with you. Do you want to stay in the Bs or should we drop down in the Cs?
It's funny at this point, Seth, I kind of just want to go through the rest of these guys. I honestly, it's tough because I'm looking through all the rest of these guys, and it makes me sad because there's not a lot of people that I can make a whole lot of cases for, because a lot of these guys are underperforming at this point. You could put Joey Logano up there. I guess because of definitely in the C's, not
okay. Okay.
I would not put him in the B's, but only because he's obviously he's the not defending champion anymore. Right now he's just the reigning champion, but he does have a win here within the last couple of seasons. He's got 12 top 10s and 20 starts. That's not a bad ratio, right? His average finish here is 9.9. The only problem with Joey Logano, and Cody will be quick to point this out to you, he's the hardest guy to handicap in the entire garage. He can go out every time, Seth, every time. He could go out, he can win, or he could go out and he can finish 34th. It's just a frustrating. He finished 5th at the Roval, finished 5th at Kansas, right? But he finished 21st at Texas, and he didn't even really get into anything. That was just him being bad at Texas. So it's tough. But yeah, I think you got to have to respect Logano in this instance, because he knows how to get around this track.
Okay. All right. I like that pick. I'm going to go back to Chevy's here. You like Raj Chastain. I'm liking Daniel Suarez all of a sudden. He's shown us some speed finally. Trackhouse is slowly putting it together. 10th in the total speed rankings here. Top 10 finish for him earlier this season. And it hasn't been all bad on these mile and a halves for Suarez at our comp tracks. 10th in the total speed rankings here earlier this season. 14th at Kansas, and then last time here at Texas, 15th. So I think Daniel Suarez is slowly putting it together. He had a great run over the weekend. I like Suarez as a guy, a little bit of a pivot option. I don't think a lot of people are going to be jonesing to get him in their lineup. And at 7,300, he just sticks out. Like I want him more than an Eric Jones this week, more than a Stenhouse, more than a Briscoe.
Oh, I over all those guys, I absolutely agree with you on that, because it is a little bit tough to even try to get there. But, from a DFS standpoint, yeah, obviously the race in the spring was a great DFS day, right? 24th, he started, he finished 10th. Those are some good place differentials. But even in the fall of 2022, when he had a 16th place finish, he still led you 31 laps in that race, and he started 6th. I know he lost you some place differential points, but he kind of made up for them in laps led. So he didn't lose you a ton of points in that day either. So, I mean, again, the only thing with Daniel Suarez is he auditioning? Like, I know that he's got a job. I know that he's probably safe next season, but if he does what he's doing now, next season, is he still in that ride? I think the pressure's on there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100% true. Who else belongs in the C tier, Rod? Is there any other juice we can squeeze out of these lemons down here?
You could put maybe Hocevar up there. I think he could surprise some folks. Obviously, we know how great he's done in the truck series. We know that he's a nice, solid Xfinity driver now. And the 42 and the 43 have been, well, they've just been, right. And they're not necessarily getting any faster, but they're also not getting too much slower lately. So I don't know. I mean, I know I'm probably missing somebody there, but that's about where I can stop. And for Carson Hocevar too, for me, I just know that he's got a lot to prove to the Cup Series still. And I think he's still trying to go out to do that. So at a C driver, I think I'll take a chance on him in DFS lineups this week.
Someone I think we are sleeping on a little bit, and maybe they should be at the beginning of this tier, is Tyler Reddick, I would argue. And I know it's volatile. Like, that's the thing when you're putting Tyler Reddick into your DFS lineups. You don't know what you're going to get a lot of time. He's another one, kind of like Logano, hard to handicap. But when you look at just pure speed here, he should have it, man. Like, he's another guy, top 10 speed ranking here earlier this season. You look at all these high speed intermediate comp tracks, number 4 for Tyler Reddick. He was great at Kansas, great at Charlotte. I mean, he did just win one of our closest comp tracks not too long ago. So I feel like maybe we're sleeping on him just because we don't roster and play a lot of Tyler Reddick between the two of us.
Yeah, and only because for me, it's because Tyler Reddick is, like you said, so volatile. I mean, he can go out and win you a road course race and then completely stink it up on a short track or even a mile and a half. So, yeah, it's frustrating. It's almost like Joey Logano in the fact that it's very hard to handicap a guy like Tyler Reddick. And sometimes it's not even his fault. Sometimes he just goes out and gets sideswiped by people because he puts himself in a bad situation. So it's tough. All right, fine. Put Kyle Busch.
Okay.
In the C's.
D's or C's?
C's. I'll put him.
Okay.
Well, what do you think, Seth?
If he goes in the D's, we have to talk about Christopher Bell and where he goes as well. But
all right, put him in the C's. Put him in the C's.
Okay.
Because for Kyle Busch, he's got 24 races on this track. He has a win, 11 top 5s, 14 top 10s, 2 poles. He's led 311 laps around this track. Kyle Busch is supposed to be good. This is his home track, right? This is the track he calls home. He's from Las Vegas. But he's got a string of top 10 finishes, even a string of top 3s and 5 finishes over the last few races, right? You go back to 2020, 6th place finish then in 2021, 3rd and 3rd in 2022, 4th and 3rd. Earlier this spring, he started 5th, finished 14th. But the thing about Kyle Busch is that we have seen a marked decline in concentration. Maybe the finishes have been there every once in a while too. I mean, obviously at the Roval, he finished 3rd. That's fine. But before that, 25th, 34th, 20th, he finished 7th at Kansas. That's okay. 11th at Darlington, 7th at Daytona, but 14th at Watkins Glen, 36th at Indy GP, 37th at Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
It's just been brutal. And I don't know that his head is in it, right?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think when you look back a couple weeks ago, maybe we should have saw this coming with the selling of his truck team. Like that is a big decision to make. And honestly, one that's a little questioning on why he made it quite when he did. But anyways, yeah, I'm with you there. I don't know what to do about Chris Bell this week because I feel like he's either going to break the fucking slate or he's going to burn or he's going to absolutely burn us once again. Because looking at like he's supposed to be a good road course driver. He led some laps last week, finished 15th, did nothing for you in fantasy, went backwards half the day, 20 fantasy points, burned you. What do you do? Auto Trader, Ecomotive, Automotive, 400 earlier this season. Okay, like did okay. But then like he comes out Bass Pro Shops night race and broke the slate with like 190 DraftKings points that night. Like I can't get Chris Bell right, and I don't know if it's gonna kill me or not because I just can't stand putting him in my lineup. Like Texas a couple weeks ago, 23rd in the total speed rankings. Where is he? But then all these other tracks, he's been great at the comps. Las Vegas, Kansas, Charlotte, Kansas. Thoughts on Chris Bell and where we can put him?
I don't touch Chris Bell. That's the thing. Like all the stats could point me in that direction. I just don't touch Chris Bell because you're right. It's I'd rather lose and not have him, or have him go off than try and have him not. So it's frustrating as all get out for Chris Bell. So I think he belongs in the C's because obviously he can come up and have a good race for you, but I just don't touch him anymore. It's frustrating.
What about your guy Kevin Harvick? Does he belong in the D's? Can you make any case for Kevin Harvick? I hate to say it, but it feels like he's kind of just riding off into the sunset.
That's it. I mean, the only place that even Cody feels comfortable is Phoenix to have him in there. So because that's the script, right? He's done. That'll be it. Yeah, you could put him in the D's, but only because he could come up and win this. I already told you he's one of the best drivers on this track, historically speaking. So that's about where I could put him. I see a 54 up there.
Yes.
What is it? IRON IMO 18. You are very, very adamant about the 54, and for good reason. I think Ty Gibbs has a very solid chance of getting a top 10 on this track. Obviously, we've seen the speed out of it. But what also gets me is that maybe he doesn't. I mean, he finished 14th at Kansas, but it was a good DFS day for him there, right? He started 36th, finished 14th. I'll take that. But Texas, right? He crashed out, started 4th, finished 33rd. He's still a rookie, guys. I know we have high hopes for him. I'm calling a top 10 finish for him, but I'm also tempering expectations too, in sort of thinking to myself, it'd be nice if it happens, but at the same time, it couldn't.
Yeah. Well, you just gave our friend in the chat what he wanted. Can we give Ross what he wants? I'll throw AJ Allmendinger in here. Ross or Rod, you've been hot on this guy for months and months, and he delivered the goods for us. He delivered the goods. He came home with the bacon, and I think he might have a little momentum coming on into this one. And it's interesting because when you look back at his total speed ranking from Vegas earlier this season, 21st, not the best, but he finished in 18th. And I think that's the ceiling for Allmendinger. You're hoping for maybe a top 20 out of him. And at the price tag, I think you could do worse, man. I think you could do worse. Like it's a little bit higher, I think, now that he won at 6,700, but still doable, still very doable. And as a leverage play, I don't think anyone's dying to go back to the well on AJ Allmendinger this week. I'll be that guy.
Well, and especially on a 1.5 mile track. I mean, we talked about him being the road course guy. He is that road course guy. And Ross, listen, I bleed the 16 for you as well. I mean, obviously, I told you just because he became my favorite driver with the grit and the intensity that he drives with and the emotion. He's a lot like me in that respect, where we are very emotional people, right? If I won that race, I'd be a balling baby too. So I'll take him as a D driver. I think there's a good spot for him there.
Okay. What about his teammate Justin Haley? I think maybe we can get around Justin Haley a little bit. Yes, I think he is riding off into the sunset a bit too, just as far as this team goes. He knows where he's going to be next year, but he actually has some speed here. 8th late run speed here, finished 8th in the spring. And I don't think that's a huge fluke. Like he's been consistent at this track, Las Vegas, 14th last season in this playoff race even. So I think there's a case to be made for Justin Haley this week. My thing is, where's his head at? That's the biggest thing. Is I don't know if I can trust him from that aspect. But 5,900, 59. I've spent more. I've spent a lot of shit. I've spent 5,900 on a lot of shit this year that has not done anything. Give me 5,900 for a guy who knows how to finish in the top 10 here at Vegas. I don't know if Justin Haley is going out on the town this week and having a great time and he's just, all chipper and ready to go. But give me some Justin Haley this week. Sign me up.
The more important thing is that he has not lost you points in Las Vegas in the last 3 races. Actually, well, yeah, in the last 4 races, I suppose he hasn't lost you any points. In the spring, like you said, he had a top 10 finish. He started 27th, right? So that's a great place differential day for you there. In the fall of 2022, started 28th, finished 14th. It's a good place differential day. Plus, he led 16 laps in that race as well. 2022 in the spring, led started 28th, finished 17th. He's getting you place differential points, which at the price, the $5,900, that's what you want out of him. Exactly, not to lose you any points.
Yes. I'm going to throw a couple more up there, Rod, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
14, give me Chase Briscoe, a surprising top 10 finisher here last year. Maybe he can make it do again. And what about Eric Almirola? Because this is another guy, very interesting, not great at a lot of these comp tracks we've been to this season. However, we've seen some weirdly good finishes from him, from Austin Cindric at Las Vegas in these 1.5 miles. Can you get there with Eric Almirola? Can we put him on the board? 16th in total speed ranking, finish 16th. Like, I think we kind of know what we're going to get.
SHR is just so hard now. Even Kevin Harvick, who we thought was a free square once upon a time, it's just so difficult to put SHR on the map. But yeah, I mean, both of those guys, they're still solid enough drivers and they can still get it done. Eric Almirola can still pop up for a good finish at Las Vegas. And, for DFS, again, we're not trying to predict a place finish. We just want them to finish well. We just want them to finish somewhere that get their price together. So yeah, I feel you on that one too. Cindric too. Yeah,
Cindric one of his few top 10s here this year. 6 actually earlier this season. So a little bit of respect there.
I'll toss one up Corey LaJoie. Put him in the D's.
Okay.
Put him in the D's. And I only put him in the D's because he does have an average fantasy points per race of 28.5. He's about $6,000, $5,800 right now. So that's not a bad ratio to have. Look back at his last few finishes. Like he got 33rd at the Roval, or 33 points at the Roval rather. 73 points for you a couple of weeks ago at the Yellowwood 500, right? Where he finished 5th place for you. That's an outstanding finish for you. 17, 20, 22, 23, 65. Like those are his point outings over the last few races. He's done you well at $5,800. It's okay to put him in there. On this track in particular, like we said, not really losing you too many points either. Finished 19th or started 19th, finished 20th in the spring, started 30th, finished 24th in the fall of 2022, started 29th, finished 15th in the spring. So he's getting around this track. Okay. So probably a D driver this week.
Okay. I'll throw Ryan Preece in the Fs as well. This is another guy, like he's not burning you lately. His fantasy totals here over the last month, 39, 50, 21, 37. He's getting the job done for a 6,100 price driver. I don't think I can put one other driver on the board. We've been hot on Eric Jones. I think I'm off that train right now. I can't get behind Stenhouse with what I'm seeing out of these JTG cars over last month. Any interest in one of those guys who a couple weeks ago, they were on a bit of a hot streak. Same with Michael McDowell.
Well, for Stenhouse, it's a matter of can he keep his car from going up in flames? Can the pizza rolls not burn, please?
That was scary. That was scary. Yeah.
I almost didn't think he was going to get out. It just looked like he was sitting there for a while.
I know.
Yeah. I can't get behind either one of those. Or I can't tie Dillon or BJ McLeod.
Yeah.
Our favorite guys to not. Can't do JJ Yaley. Can't even do Gilliland or McDonald on this track, which is crazy to say, but I mean, not for Gilliland, we already know that, but McDonald, like if this were a road course or if this was a short track or, some off track, I could get behind, or super speedway, but I can't. So yeah, I don't know. I can't get behind Brendan Poole in the 15. can't get behind him either. So
No, no, I think you just cleared the deck for us. Michael McDowell, may, maybe Michael McDowell. I feel like Michael McDowell. I was looking at some numbers earlier. Michael McDowell popped a little bit.
he
No,
finished 25th here last
never
year,
mind.
or that in the spring rather.
Yeah, never mind. I'm good on Michael McDowell. So yeah, I think you said it. Austin Dillon, no thank you. No thank you on Poole. No thank you on Burton. Michael McDowell, see ya. Todd Gillen, we'll see you next year. Eric Jones, Stenhouse. I think we got it, man. Let's go ahead. Let's break it down in a betting perspective here over in Parking Garage Props. And I love tonight that the IBT family keeping us on our toes in those tiers. They're making sure we ain't forgetting anyone. And that's what I like to see out of everyone in the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in tonight and following along. Let's talk about this week, Rob, because you're looking at the books. You know, of course, we're going to flash open the outrights right away. And we see guys 4.5, 5.5, 6.5 to 1. And it's like kind of biting your tongue a little bit. But at Vegas, you do get it in a sense. You know, it's a very predictable track for the most part. But man, some of these books came to play this week, specifically Caesars. We'll talk about the prop bets, but we always start out giving shit to the books. And I feel like this week we got to give some praise where it's due.
Yeah, and I've told you right now, we're starting to get F1 level type stuff where in F1, you could basically bet on everything from even the fastest pit stop in F1. So
yeah,
we're reaching that level now where you've got average speed of race, drivers to lead a lap, led by any driver. I mean, drivers not completing 133 laps, number of lead changes. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Let's go.
Let's go, baby. And let's start in the outrights tonight, Rod. Of course, this is one that, for me at least, in my betting card, I'm going to have a little bit of juice come in, a little bit of payments coming in after practice and qualifying, because I do need to see who is going to unload the fastest here on Saturday. With that said, is there anyone in the outright markets that you're interested in here, pre-Ps and Qs?
So I gave out Kyle Larson on the show. He was at plus 500 on Superbook, and we kind of talked about him in the DFS tiers, obviously, but like for Kyle Larson, we tend to forget that he was one of the most dominant drivers a couple of seasons ago, right? It feels like forever ago that Kyle Larson was winning every single race. And I'm sure it feels like that to Kyle Larson as well. So I think if he is going to mount a serious championship charge, he's got to plant his flag this week. This is probably his best chance to plant that flag because we talked about him and Hendrick being dominant here, and it's got to start. So this 5 team is going to throw everything they've got at this track. Not that everybody else isn't, but what the 5 team has is probably substantially better than what a lot of these guys have to throw at a track. So I'm getting behind Kyle Larson. I know it's not as long odds as we want, but at 5-1 on Superbook, I have to make sure that it's still 5-1 on Superbook because I haven't.
Old Rod, always getting the Superbook out there.
Oh my God, this is okay. It's at plus 350 on Superbook now.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing 4.5 to 1 right now on FanDuel. That is the best number I can see, and that is the number I have locked in as well. So I'm right there with you, Rod.
Yeah, the public's on it with you too.
We don't necessarily love betting the favorite, and a lot of times on this show, Rod, we kind of go contrarian and don't bet the favorites. But there has been a couple times we have bet Kyle Larson this year and it's paid off. Martinsville. If you roll in on him like we were for the All-Star race, you were cashing some tickets that night as well. So I'm back in on him there. Top 3 at Caesars as well, plus 130. I think that's a number we should consider. And I've never bet this low on an outright, I think, this entire season. But the data has also never led me to be this confident on one driver so far this season. Won the 7th playoff race before in 2021. Won the Vegas playoff race in 2021 as well. Best career driver rating in the field at Las Vegas. It's not really close. Number 3 in all-time average starting position, 8.1. That is huge to me. That is the number that I am locking in on because qualifying and track position is going to matter in a big way. I'm not betting on him to win the pole because we know what Kyle Larson does when you bet him to win the pole. He chokes. But I think he will have a top 5, top 10 starting position. And for a guy who was pretty much second in all the advanced analytics to Byron, green flag speed, average position, total speed ranking, laps led percentage, driver rating in the spring, I think he's going to have a big race here. And like you said, it's flag planning season for Kyle Larson.
Yeah, and he needs to. And that the whole team needs that kind of a finish from him. So I think if you're going to get it, this is where you're going to get it, because he doesn't want to worry about the other 2 races being knockout races for him. So I like that as well. Seth, I mean, to me, it was like I want to take a long shot guy.
Okay. Yeah, there were some at least long numbers on some good drivers this week.
Yeah, and we talked about Brad Keselowski earlier. That's my longer shot. Like, that's the guy on the card. He's 16. Okay, hold on. Now I gotta double check, because I give these numbers out.
I'm seeing 20 on Bet Rivers right now.
Ooh, I see 20 on Superbook. It jumped up. I love that. Take that. Take the 20-1 on Brad Keselowski. I don't know how that number shifted the way it did, but definitely take that number on Brad Keselowski. We talked about it again in the betting tiers. Just the fact that he's got 3 wins on this track in his career. Granted, I know they all came in the 2, and he hasn't won one since 2018, but he's a wily veteran. Like, I think he's got a win in him. He's pushed Buescher to a couple of wins already this season. I think he wants one of his own, right? I think he would love to have nothing more than a trophy on his mantle. So I think it could come in Vegas. He's one of the active win leaders on this track. So as a long shot, 20-1 now, I'll take that.
There are some, not that I am advising anyone to go in on these, but there are just some crazy numbers out there this week. Like, I mean, it is insane what we're getting here, Rod. It's like 80-1 on Daniel Suarez, 200-1 on guys like Stenhouse, and AJ Allmendinger, 250-1. It is crazy out there. I have nothing else as far as outrights go, but I do want to talk about placement props here. And the one I am riding hot again on this week, we put 2 units on it last week. I think I'll put 1 on it this week. It's Alex Bowman plus 130 for a top 10 at FanDuel. I'm riding shotgun with him, man. I'm riding shotgun. We rode the streak earlier. We actually placed this exact same bet, almost the exact same odds when I look back in my notes at Las Vegas earlier this year. And we came out swinging, man. It was a great race for him. As we mentioned, Gragson finished 11th in his car here last year. So it's something with this team as well as it is Bowman. Number 3 in the total speed rankings, green flag speed, and late run speed in this spring race earlier this season. Average position on the track, 6.2. So it was Byron all day, it was Larson all day, and then a little bit behind them, it was Bowman. I like him a lot here. Looking back at his total finishes in general at this track, Rod, tied for 4th in driver rating since 2020, 3 top 5s, and a win in that span as well.
Yeah, and so what was the number that you got?
Yes, number right now is plus 130. That's over at our friends at FanDuel.
You said that's a top 10, correct?
Yes, correct.
I'm laddering that up to a top 5. I mean, at plus 400, I'm seeing it on Caesars. I got it at plus 450. And I think it was on DraftKings that had him at plus 450. But yeah, I'm telling you right now, I really do believe you in this, in that he's going to be a car to be contended with. I think, like I said, he doesn't have anything to lose now. He can just go out and try to run a race. They need to figure out something, because they can't go into next season running the way they are right now. And Bowman can do it. Bowman needs a little cattle prod in the ass, but I think he can do it.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Anything else here in the placement props that we haven't discussed that you're backing, Rod?
I really did like your Larson top 3 as well. I'm also going to throw Truex into the top 5. Talked about Gibbs. We talked about Hendrick being good on this one. And his top 5 number is at plus 120. You can go look that up around Bet365 has got that right now there as well. So, but again, for Truex, regular season champion, right? This guy was just tearing it up over the course of the regular season and has dropped way off. That team needs to get back on track. They are lucky they made it this far. They can't be lucky this time. They've got to do it themselves. So Truex, I think, is a top 3 or top 5 car rather. That's about where I think he's going to finish is at least 5th. I mean, I don't know that he's going to get up there any farther, but 5th for sure.
I've been trying to find a way to bake him into my betting card this week, and it's been tough because I don't think he has what it takes to win this. But a top 5 might not be a bad way to go about this. Looking at the total speed rankings across our comp tracks, 4th at Las Vegas earlier this season, 2nd at the first Kansas, then 4th at Charlotte. It was Kansas 2 when it was Texas where things really went awry for him. But some of that was bad luck. Some of that was bad, just bad car that day. So I think there's some anomalies baking into this recent performance. So I don't mind you backing Truex here, Rod.
Yeah, again, that's to me, it's a matter of, can he get this done now? This is it. I think this is his last shot, honestly, because if he doesn't get a good finish here, that's already compiling on to what's happened so far. And there's only so much you can endure before, you completely check out.
Well, we know just next week, especially, I feel like at Homestead, we know there's guys like Reddick who could win that race. Christopher Bell deeper down in this pool. So it is go time for Martin Truex Jr. here. Let's move to matchups and groups. Anything you're seeing out there that we should get invested in, Rod?
So kudos as well to Caesars, because we said we wanted more of these Eric Almirola versus Ricky Stenhouse type.
Yes.
Ryan Preece versus Austin Cindric, Michael McDowell versus Austin Dillon. So, I mean, kudos to them for giving them to us. Now we have to actually start to figure it out. But the odds necessarily aren't what we want. So it's difficult because I found a Ty Gibbs, Kevin Harvick. I want the Ty Gibbs side of this, but it's minus 145. That's a little hard to stomach. I mean, I wanted the bet, but the odds now need to figure out how to wrap around it. So, but if you don't mind it, I mean, I know Cody always says you only pay the juice if you lose. I think Ty Gibbs will definitely have a better finish than Kevin Harvick on this one. So if a 145 doesn't scare you, then by all means lay that. And if you win, then you're not mad.
Yeah, 100%. I also have been digging the qualifying matchups that they've been doing as well, and that's where I'm going with my first head-to-head here. It's MTJ, who's actually not favorited over Ross Chastain, minus 110 on Caesars. I thought this was a surprising one. This is a playoff driver, a much better qualifier this season and at this track, MTJ. Only thing that I can think that was maybe leading Ross to be the favorite is he did out-qualify him earlier this season at Las Vegas. That was the race where Truex kind of came from the back of the pack and really made a statement here. Rod, thoughts on this one? MTJ minus 110 over Ross, the surprising favorite.
Well, again, I mean, we talked about Martin Truex Jr. needing a good race out of this, and I think he's going to. I already said that I think Ross Chastain's going to have a solid day.
You were high on Ross, yes.
Yeah, but I still think that this could cash because I still think Martin Truex Jr. as a top 5 car is feasible. And then Ross Chastain probably finishes 7th to 10th, right? Maybe he'll snag a top 10 in there, and that's a good day, especially for DFS. For, like we said, I'm not high on him as far as betting is concerned, but from a DFS standpoint, yeah, a 10th place finish you'll take, especially if he finishes or starts rather somewhere in the 20s. So
that would be great. That would be
fantastic.
Let's go to specials here, Rod, because I thought this is where I just fell in love. And I was looking at my Caesars account limits, honestly, because I was like, I think I need to pump some more into it this week with how excited I am. So let's start there. What are you digging here? Anything that your heart desires, my friend?
So we were looking at, and I was looking at, especially this drivers to lead a lap thing. And
I'm so glad you brought this up because I've been staring at this one. I have not invested, and I really want to.
Well, it's tough because it's been all over the place over the last few races. I mean, it's been 18 in one, it's been 10 in the other. It's 10.5 is what the number is set at right now. And it is so tempting right now to take the over at plus 105 because it's plus 105. I mean, that's a plus money bet is good. There were 13 lead changes in this race last in the spring, right? And so that's 13 official lead changes, but there were only drivers to lead a lap. That's I said lead later. There's drivers to lead a lap. But there were not 10 drivers to lead a lap. There was 13, but there were not 10, which is crazy because there was 1, 2, 3, 4,
I think it was
5,
8,
6, 7, 8 total drivers that lead a lap, right? But this season's been so squirrely. Like overtime can give you a couple more. So I want to lean over on this one. I want to lean over 10.5 because I'm a positive guy. I like overs. So yeah, give me over 10.5 drivers to lead a lap in this race.
I went down the wormhole on this one. I started looking up all the races, and I found that it was split the last 4 races, 50-50. So if you're taking the plus money side, I was thinking about laying the under, but I don't know if I can get behind minus 135 on something that could happen on pit strategy, you know? So I think there's some merit there. What about this one, Rod? What about, and I know a lot of times we prefer to just take the outrights, but with this one, it makes sense a little bit. Busher, Larson, or Denny to win, plus 170 at Caesars. We've talked about Denny. We've talked about Larson tonight. To me, they're the 2 favorites. I think one of them win this race. Busher, third at Texas. So I think you can still kind of fuck around and find out a little bit from Chris Busher. I like this one. I feel like it's a very good chance it's going to cash between Larson and Denny. Anytime you can get, in my opinion, the 2 best drivers and cars in the field in a bet plus 170, I feel like I have to jump on it.
There's good ways to hedge, and this is obviously a good way to hedge, especially if you get Kyle Larson in this. You can even double up. I mean, if you put something on Kyle to win outright,
Yes.
you know, and you put something on this, that gives you a couple extra drivers that have an opportunity to win, and the guy that wins the race. So you could even double dip if Kyle Larson does win this race.
Yeah. What else do you have for us here in specials, Rod?
So the winning team, I feel like if you split whatever units you want to split between Hendrick and Joe Gibbs on this one.
Where are you finding this? I was trying to find this earlier and I could not.
Winning team. I'm seeing this in Caesars under the futures bets.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm seeing Hendrick at plus 150, Gibbs at plus 200. You know, it's funny. We had this discussion on the NASCAR gambling podcast where you and I, Seth, we look at this 150 and we look at this 200 and go, it's like a little lean. But if you're an NFL bettor and you're looking at 150 plus 150 plus 200, you're loving it, right? You're like, oh man, I'm definitely taking that bet. I know we're spoiled in NASCAR, but a 2-to-1 bet is still a 2-to-1 bet, right? So if you want to break some stuff up between Hendrick and Joe Gibbs, I think those are the 2 cars that'll be fighting for a win at the end of the race.
I love that strategy, Rod, because I would be flabbergasted. What do you want to say right now? I will do a naked lap around my house next week. Mark it down right now, folks. Pull out the receipts if it doesn't happen. If Hendricks or Joe Gibbs Racing does not win this race on Sunday, naked lap before the show. I'll report back to you guys. So, Rod, hold me to it. Naked lap if one of these bets doesn't catch, because I'm all in on them.
I got to get the censor button ready for that. I got to get the little squiggly line to follow you around like Naked and Afraid.
There we go. What about this one? Top Toyota, Denny Hamlin, plus 220. Won the closest comp track. I think Tyler Reddick's really the only one, in my opinion. Maybe Bubba, who could compete with him here. I guess we do like MTJ a little bit, but it's just a different level of Denny Hamlin this year. It's a different level. He was running top 5 before that chaos. Could have finished 3rd very easily. And MTJ has fallen off a little bit. I don't think he can quite get there. And I just don't know what I'm getting from the 23-11 guys this week. So I really think this is Denny Hamlin's time. Top Toyota plus 220. That feels like a really good way to bet him rather than betting a top 5 or a top 3 on him, in my opinion.
Well, and he could finish 8th and still be the top Toyota. I mean, that's the one thing about it. If you're betting these top manufacturers, they don't have to be anywhere other than above everybody else, right? Which is why in like Xfinity, if you're betting Fords, or in the truck series, if you're betting Fords, it's great because you only have one guy to beat 4 other ones. And if he finishes in 17th and everybody else finishes behind him, then you still cash this bet. So I think you're right. I think this is a good way to bet Denny Hamlin and to not worry about where he finishes in this race, just so long as he finishes above everybody else driving a Toyota.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yoder strong, baby. Rod, anything we haven't talked about? I have one more for the listening audience out there. Anything you found here in the specials, which was just great. Thank you, Caesars. Shout out Caesars. We love you, baby.
They're doing God's work over there. If you wanted to throw something at this one, obviously we talked about the fact that Ryan Blaney can get things done on this. This is an interesting one because it gives you William Byron, who we pretty much think is going to be a top 5 car, and Ryan Blaney, who could be a top 5 car. Put those together, it's a plus 450, both to finish top 5. It's an interesting speculation on William Byron, which we know, but the only unknown now is that Ryan Blaney to finish in the top 5. So if he does come out and do well, like he should, then this bet's a pretty interesting speculation as well.
Okay. Last one on my card for the weekend is winning car number under 11.5 plus 130. Man, like, what are you're betting against Byron and Truex here. That's pretty much what you're betting against, because I don't think if it's them, we talked about it. Let's pull up the fucking tiers again. Like, we know who the top 4 in this race are. I'm gonna bet that it's gonna be Larson or Hamlin here. That's the bet you're making here. I guess Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain a little bit. You like Keselowski as well, so I imagine you like this bet, Rod.
I do, in fact, and that's one of the ones that we brought up on our show as well. So your research is justified in that it's corroborated by our folks. And that's the thing about winning numbers. I love them to death. Those are the easiest things to bet on because you get so many good drivers below or above that number that it only makes sense. So yeah, I like it.
All right, there we go. Rod, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Thank you to the IBT family for joining us as well. If you guys are new to the channel, subscribe, come back, hang out with us again. We're here live every Thursday till the end of the season, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. We also have PGA, DFS, and betting content, and some NFL fantasy football and betting content as well here at IBT Media. And Rod, I know you and Cody are busy over at the NASCAR betting show as well throughout the remainder of the season. Tell us where we can find you and all the good work you guys are doing over there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just look for the NASCAR Gambling Podcast over on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube as well. So once you're done watching this, head over to the YouTube channel where you can see our glowing faces. And then, of course, make sure you're following me as well on For Frequency's Sake. Every week I put together some parlays for you over on the Fast Money Show. You can find that also on YouTube as well. Or if you really want, I'm on X at RJ Villa Gomez. Link in the bio, everything I got going on, whether it's here or the NASCAR Gambling Podcast as well. And if you're one of those lucky blue sky folks, find me over there as well at RJ.
Ooh, are you on the sky, Rod?
Yeah, I'm in the sky right now. I don't know what to do with it yet. Somebody needs to tell me, but I'll figure it out, I guess.
Hell yeah. Well, we appreciate everyone coming down the back road. Enjoy Las Vegas. Enjoy another week of football as well. And we'll catch you guys next time. Keep it in between.